Hey everybody, adjusting the Facebook grip of death on my page tonight. Back again with another one. I'm going to be coloring a little bit on the Relapse webcomic for you guys tonight. The Invaders piece didn't get together today because I got sidetracked with a couple of other things going on. But so close, so close. Gonna knock this out with you guys real quick, and we're going to hang out, and I'm going to color some flesh tones in here. And we're going to keep it short tonight because I don't want to expose this too much. I'm going to, like I said, color in some flesh tones on the characters, maybe do a little hair and a little background, and we'll go from there. I'm not going to stick around and do the whole thing and keep you guys for an hour, but I wanted to talk a little bit. So I'm going to hang out with you and get this going. So hold on, and let me share this with the channel. And there we go. We're coming up. coming up. Now, okay. Sorry about that. Took a little bit longer because, like I said, Facebook was fighting a little bit. But now we're good. So, anyway, what we got going on here is a full comic page. And what I'm going to talk with you guys while we're hanging out is a little bit about webcomics. I hope you're cool with that. I know that's the big thing right now. But like I said, I just want to give my approach to it. I got asked about it yesterday, and I thought I'd give you guys a little bit of, the insight and information. And feel free to comment, and we'll discuss a little bit. But for the most part, I've always been a huge advocate of digital and print, not just print versus digital. Okay? I have no problem with webcomics, and I think they're the way of the future. The technology's been around for about 10 years now in the internet marketing space and a couple other places. And, a lot of people are still frowning on it, which I'm not. I'm really not. So I tend to like it and want to see more of it, and am working on, for those of you that know my programming background, I'm looking at getting a system in place for us to get some digital distribution out, so hang tight for that one. But anyway, I just wanted to talk about webcomics a little bit. A lot of people say, well, I don't want to do webcomics because you have to give them away for free and you can't make money on them and this, that, and the other. Yeah, you can. You just have to look at it from a perspective of monetizing the site. Okay, yes, webcomics are a lot of the exposure side rather than the monetary gain side of distributing comic books, standalone. So what you have to do is you have to go in and think about it from a digital comic standpoint, okay? Make digital comics, make PDFs, make downloadables, make you can make EPUBs, which is a ePublish file. You can use Amazon and make comics that way. I do it all the time, and I have no problem with it, okay? I'm going to tell you flat out, just go out, do your thing, use whatever format works for you. It doesn't necessarily have to be a traditional web comic of putting it out online and, in segments and in pages and whatnot and not making any money off of it. Also, you can put it behind a subscription service. I do that as well, and I'm going to be doing that for FireStorm Comics with a lot of the the online version of my comic books that I have, because I have digital versions of the comic books as well as print versions. So you have downloadables, you have print on demands, and then you have trades coming out through that system. Also, there are a big load of fans out there that want to subscribe and see comic books. You can put your comics on as web comics behind a membership and share the pages every month and have people subscribe to your program and get all access to that. I saw a couple of places like Comixology and things like that ripping people off. I'm not an advocate for using Comixology. They have a great platform through Amazon, but the thing is, they already had a platform through Amazon, they already had a platform before Amazon came along and absorbed them. So, those readers have been jaded, and they've been programmed to buy into that subscription service for Amazon. Now, what you don't get as the publisher services, they have to keep those things going, so they're giving away your comic books to their subscribing list. What they don't tell you is they give away your comic books for free on the back end and tell you Okay, you're giving away your comic for free to get exposure. Yay, you. But the problem with that is when you sign up for that publisher program that they use, the thing is they're still getting paid every single month. You get paid the first month as part of that subscription service, and then they stop and drop you. Don't let them do that because they're cheating you left and right, okay? Huge thing. They're not doing it legitimately, and they're cutting you out because they share your books at random, and they say, well, you've got random access share, so we give you a stipend every 6 months, and that's supposed to be okay. The problem with that is they're sharing your book to keep those people that are reading your book in that first place. They got to give them the next issue to keep them on subscription. They're not just throwing out random packs of books and saying, hey, you're going to get this one this month. You got to buy it next month to keep it on. No, because that breaches their subscription service. So, people cancel out to buy that next book. Well, guess what? They're not going to do that. So they're cheating you by giving away your book for free, whether you know it or not, and you agree to it in that terms of service because you sign up. Think about that. Think about that. You're handing over your stuff. You're giving away your book, and you may be talked into doing something crazy like that, but I'm telling you something bad about it. They may be like, well, you're giving yourself free promotion, and as long as you're on that list, we'll promote your book to everybody we put it out to. Guess what? They're putting it out there anyway. They already are, because they put out a publication catalog for everything that they access. Because guess what? When you go and search Amazon or Comixology and you search a genre of comic books, guess what shows up in that catalog for free right now? Your book. Think about that. They do it every single time. Okay, you're paying to have your book stolen, and you may not be paying for it up front with cash, but what you're paying on is they're yanking your comic books away from you, and you don't even realize it, because they're selling them on the back end through that subscription, and they're not giving you the stipend off of it. So, if you want a webcomic, put your book out there and use it as promotional release, use it as promotional material, and move on. I like to use mine as promotional material when I do this because I'm designing Relapse for a 3-phase process. You have the webcomic, which is free for you guys. Then it's going to be taken down and put in a collected series when the series is over, and then it's going to be put into a collected trade. And you'll be able to buy it digitally and in print, but you'll be able to buy it as a trade graphic novel or trade collected novel later. Think about that one. But you're getting it for free right now, right? So get that out of your head now, because these guys are going to rip you off tooth and nail, hand over fist, every single day that you let them do it. Don't give away your comic books for free, because you're giving away to that reader and you're not building readership with them. So use your comic books for yourself. Use your webcomics for yourself. If you want to do the exposure and do a webcomic, awesome, okay? But that's the business behind it. And if you want to monetize it to where you're making money from it, put it behind a subscription service or put it on a paid service that has to subscribe for it for access. Okay? That's the easiest way to monetize that webcomic. Don't waste your time going off and saying, well, I'm going to charge, Facebook ads, or I'm going to charge Google AdWords or Google AdSense or whatever the Google thing of the day is that you want to get caught up in, the advertising of the day. Don't get caught up in those scenarios. Get in there and make it happen the way it's supposed to. I've got to sharpen this up. Get in there and make it happen the way it's supposed to, so you can get your book out there. I see so many people throw their stuff away without even realizing it, because of the fact that what ends up happening is you end up losing access to everything because you end up losing 2 or 3 issues of your book. I see it happen all the time. So I see people getting cheated out of it all the time. And what ends up happening is, you'll lose all that money on the front end, and you'll be like, oh, well, I'm going to have to stop doing my book because I can't afford it. Well, guess what? Because you didn't monetize it in the first place, that's why you're losing it. You gave it away to Amazon or, to Comixology or whoever you gave it to. Think about that. Think about it. Also, be sure to copyright and trademark your material, because if you don't, someone can go in and steal that material, even though it's digital. make sure that you put it as free, but not public domain or open source. Make sure you disregard that. Make sure you say it is free but owned. And if you don't, people will be able to go in and use that material illegally and share it everywhere, and you won't be able to fight them on it. I've seen that happen, not with me personally, because I'm so paranoid about that kind of stuff and cover all my legal bases up front. But you never know, you know. Like I'm coloring this on Facebook right now and YouTube. I could lose, if I didn't have this copyrighted with a script, with a copy of the script and the thumbnails and the original pencils for this set, I could lose it because it wasn't copyrighted at that point. So I had to copyright it before I could show it on Facebook as I was drawing it. That page that I did for you guys afterward, I had to add that into that package and re-up that to my copyright. I had to pay an extra $45 to get that re-upped as the original completed version. Otherwise, it wouldn't have responded. So I put the first chapter as 3 pages to guarantee it was going to go through either way. And, you know, that prevented me from having to do that. But you have to be protective of your material and your original IPs, okay? That's called intellectual properties. And you have to be careful with those things because you can lose your butt. And I protect everything that I have because of that fact. I've got copyrights and pending trademarks in most cases because they haven't been processed yet and they take forever. But they're filed for proof of ownership and claim to my characters before I ever show them publicly, or I don't show them. So, you know, whenever you guys see me doing something original, guarantee that it's already been taken care of because I don't want anybody to come along and try to rip it off. But you should do that too. I see people creating stuff online all the time, you know, and if you create something online that's cool for an example, but be sure to copyright that sucker instantly. And send a copy of the video or a link to the video showing that you did it on this day as proof and verification that you did it. Because in a court of law, if someone takes that character, runs with it, and steals it, and then uses it and designs it, guess what? You have to fight them in court to prove that you had it first. You really do, unless you go in there and do it first, unless you do it properly. So make sure that you have all that covered up, because if you don't, you may be paying for it later by the loss of your character or converting it to public domain by accident with releasing it early and not protecting it. I have to protect everything that I do. I mean, this is my livelihood and this is what I live off of. So I definitely wanted to change that and make sure that everybody knew that, you know, all that's protected, and you guys should do the same thing. So what I like to do with this, for webcomic design, I go with traditional pages. And I post comic book versions. Web versions of the comic book page up online. That's what I like to do. That's what I'm going to do with this series. Okay. I've done many comics that have gone viral this way as well, and I've never done one for FireStorm until now, but I really dig it nonetheless of having that in place and sharing with you guys the craft. So this is something that's going to be a regular visitation exposure to FireStorm Comics, and you'll be able to go on there and check it out. And once a month I will be posting new stuff, and I wish I had the time to do it weekly, but I don't. So I may get ahead and start posting weekly later, but as of right now though, I'm going to be posting a few pages a month in small chapters, and we'll be able to go from there. But I would like to get to where I could do it daily for you guys, and daily and weekly for you guys, but we'll see how it goes. But right now I don't want to overwhelm it and then have the book get behind on deadline and ruin it once it starts. So know your legal side of it, know your protection of all your legal stuff, the legalities, and you know, your characters and all that, and make sure it's copyrighted and protected, trademarked, and all that, and then go in and do all of your due diligence with the scheduling. Make sure this sucker's ready to run. You know what I mean? Make sure it's ready and clear. When you go, you have a couple of issues backed up so that you don't have to worry about that. Because I see so many people, they'll go in and they'll say, well, I'm going to do a webcomic, but you know, I don't know if I can keep up with it on a daily basis. The thing is, the people that release it daily have done cartoons backed up and pages backed up and comics backed up for months. Keep that in mind. There's so many people out there that just throw down and say, I'm going to do a webcomic, and then they don't know how to do comics, and they don't know how to project anything. So they end up doing, this stuff live every week. And if you're a cartoonist, you can do that because you have a lot more leniency, but they still work 3 or 4 weeks ahead, I mean, I've done things like that before and worked with newspapers and stuff, and they still even have a 5 to 6 week leeway, because if you get sick or something, they're going to have a deadline of publishing that comic, and you got to make sure that you have comics coming down the pipe to take care of that. And I see that all the time, that people go, well, I want to do a comic book, and they're like, well, okay, cool. It's too expensive. I can't do it. It's too much time. I can't do it. It's too busy. I can't do it. And then they fade away, and then they don't ever come back. Joe Muriara, great comic book artist that I'm sure you guys know, had a huge problem with keeping his title together. They had at Image, he had Battle Chasers, and was constantly late with that thing. And the reason is because he didn't know how to produce, because, Marvel would have him do a project, and these other companies that he worked with as well, these Asian comic companies over in China and Japan would have him do comics as well with no problem. And he wouldn't think twice about it. They would schedule a comic book, he'd do it, and it'd be done, and that's the way he thought it was. Well, it turned out that, when he got into Image, he couldn't keep up with the deadline because he simply wasn't producing enough. So Battle Chasers #1 came out, and then Battle Chasers #2 came out like 6 or 7 months later. And then Battle Chasers #3 came out 4 or 5 months after that. And, I ran into that experience myself with Catman Evolution. I put out #1 and 2 and 3, and I had scripts going on with Veronica Massey, and we kicked it out, and we had the book going, and then all of a sudden it fell to the wayside because we had so many art problems with the artist vanishing on us. Rod vanished on us on our first book out, and we had to replace him with Melvin, which I had to help finish up the last couple of pages of that book, which I was not ready to do, and I had to do it in like 24 hours, which was crazy. I'd do like 6 pages, and it was nuts. But anyway, we had to fix those problems, I mean, if you don't plan ahead and have a team put in place and have the correct plan in place, man, you will get dumped on like no tomorrow. And that's the reason #4, 5, 6, and 7 are done for Catman Evolution, but I won't release it until I get through issue 9. And I'm drawing issue 12 right now, but I still haven't colored up issue 9 yet. So I've penciled and inked issue 12, but I'm not through issue 9 with the coloring yet. And as soon as I get it colored and lettered, which the overlays are already done for the lettering, I just have to finish the coloring. Once it's done, I'll be able to put that book out, and then we'll have it monthly. So you guys will get that book soon too. But man, until that point, it's crazy stuff. So be sure that even as a webcomic, you plan about 4 chapters ahead of at least 5 to 10 pages per book, per chapter. So the way I like to do it in my program and practice, I like to do about 20 pages, about a comic book worth, about 20, 24 pages of one of these books completely, and then plan on putting it out. Because I put them out in 3 to 5 page segments, and that's the way I'll be releasing it. So, I can do, like I'm doing this page tonight, you guys will get this one with chapter 1, but the thing is chapter 1 for page 1, 2, 3 is already done with no problem. So we're coloring this page as a hobby piece tonight for the live. So you guys will have that going on. But keep in mind though, always prepare 3 to 5 pages out just to be safe, because if you don't, you will get bit in the butt by it. Because you will not be prepared, and something will happen. You'll get the flu, you'll get sick. If you have kids, and Lord forbid, I wish any illness on anybody, because I'm not, your kid will get a cold, or they'll come up with something. Somebody will come up with something to where you get down in the dumps and you end up washing out because of it, and you're a month behind before you know it. It's that simple. Really, really is that simple. It can happen so easily. I'm going to grab my browns over here. For the hair. Hey, Johnny, Tom, Brian. I didn't see you guys come on. Sorry, man. I'm not being rude. I swear I'm not. I'm going to get some color reference here from one of the other pages. But yeah, it's crazy, man. Don't get tied down with that. If you're going to do webcomics, jump in there and get the webcomic done and move on to the next thing. You know what I mean? That's the big number one catch-22 of all of it, is get in there and catch it and get it done so that you don't choke yourself out, because I see that happen so often. And I beg friends all the time, please, please, please don't do this. And they'll be like, well, I got it, man. I want to do a webcomic. And it's just, why? Or they do print on demand crappy stuff and they'll do their own anthology or something like that. And I've done those too. And it's just like, oh, bore me to death. But whatever. Because when it comes down to it, it's not going to matter at the end of the day. If you get caught up and get behind, you're going to get slapped in the face with it. I know everybody griped at me about Catman Evolution, and I feel so bad about that, and I'm trying to recover it, But the damage is already done. I mean, we didn't have the artist that we had flaked out on us, and we got left hanging again. And then I finally said, screw it, I'm going to take over, and, that's a technical term. And I finally took over with issue 4 and decided to do all of it. And I love it. I love it. But I've been revamping these websites to get them back up so that we can get all this going on. And I had to do this card set for this year. This has been really cool, man, keeping all this stuff going on with this live every night for almost a year now. And the reason I keep pushing for that, even though I've got over 300 episodes, it's still not physically a year until May 3rd. But the big thing about the comics behind it are I'm doing so many books now. So many books. And I'm doing 3 to 5 pages a day, man. I mean, most of the comic standard is to do a page a day in a 10 to 14 hour period, and it never goes beyond that. Okay? Now, what I'm ending up doing is jumping on, drop my pencil here. What I'm ending up doing is dropping it 3 times as much and going only 3 to 5 pages. Now, how I do that is, like I said, I've mentioned this many times before, I go in with Kirby style layouts. So I have everything done before I go in, the entire story is laid out before I ever touch pencil to page. And then I go in and do the walkthrough and do the edits and then go on to the next set. So we don't have to worry about that. But I see so many guys going in there and they're like, well, I don't want to draw a comic book page. If I draw a comic book page a day, I'm dead. And, I don't have time for that. That's not realistic. Well, then you're not really doing the job. But with webcomics, you can do 4 or 5 or 7 pages a month, at leisure. And just be sure you build up a couple of issues before you go live with it, and you'll be fine. So, when I laid out the pencils for these things, I've got something along the line of, I don't know offhand, like 10 or 12 issues of this thing at 5 to 7 pages a pop. So, I've got a couple of comic books worth. And I've already got most of the story written out to where this whole book arc legacy thing is going to go down. But I haven't drawn them all yet. So, you just got to consider what's going on and keep moving from there. So, with that said, I'm going to go over here and pop in this kid's hair. And I know I'm not doing much tonight on this one, but this is pretty much a Q&A type of thing where I'm answering a couple of questions you guys had about it. But I got asked yesterday a couple of questions about it, like I mentioned, and they asked me what my process was for putting out webcomics and what I'm going to be doing with it. So to answer that, I build up comic book style. So I build up basically the full length of a couple of comic books, and then come out with 4 or 5 pages at a time, or maybe it's going to be an average of 5 pages, maybe a little more. And I'm going to start posting those once a month. And what you guys are going to get is you're going to get 5 or 6 pages every single month, free and clear. But understand that this story is very much a property of mine, and I'm going to be putting it into a collection for digital and print on demand, collected trades later. And that's how I monetize a lot of my comic work. However, you don't have to do that, okay? You really don't. And the reason I say you don't have to do that is because of the fact that you don't have to do that is exactly that. You don't have to do it that way. You can go in and build up a full comic book if that's what you want to do, or build up 1 page a week, or build up, a couple of pages a month, and move on at your own pace. Do whatever works for you. That's my method. Now, the next question I got asked was, how many pages do I draw in a row before I call it a chapter? Well, the thing is, like I said, I draw comic book style, so I do an average of 24 pages out of a book, like it's brand new, like it's full comic. And the reason I do that is because I want to move through and get all of that set up and going. I'm going to grab some blues here. I'm going to test out this suit color because I want to color this frame down here at the bottom, but I want to make sure it's the right blue. Nope, that's not it. Bear with me a sec. And whoops, I'm just throwing stuff all over the place. I'm testing colors here so that I can get this going without my color key again, unfortunately. So I want to make sure we get the right thing. Oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and do this so I can keep going. I'm going to go ahead and grab this so I can keep going. But I'm going to do this top and this tie. So anyway, I like to do this crazy thing where I set up the comic book and do a 24 page style and move on with it. I don't go too hard at it. I keep it pretty simple. I lay out the entire script, and then I start just filling it in, penciling pages, inking pages, coloring pages. And that's what I do with it. And I like to get that done because of the fact that I don't want to mess with everything else that's going to ensue along the way, getting out of order. So that's what I like to do. I like to go along and color everything, get it all set up, get it going, get it in place, and then move on. I see so many people, so many people screw that up and try to do everything all at once, and they end up mapping out the wrong things, okay? It's horrible to see that happen, and I don't want that to happen for you guys. Make sure that you map out your entire comic, first and foremost, at bare minimum, the chapters, bare minimum. And if you're not mapping out chapters in your book, you're really going to screw your story up along the way, because you're writing raw like this for a webcomic is not the same as writing an individual comic book, okay? Because these things have to be rhythmic like a television show. The number one flawed thing I see with comic books in webcomics is the story flops because people haven't written out the entire arc. Write it out like it's a TV series, and then you're building up the episodes as you draw them. Instead of them acting them out, of course, you're building them up for production. Make that a common habit with yourself, and you'll be okay. Otherwise, you will end up trashing the book because it'll get off kilter, it'll get weird, it'll go sideways. You may not feel the same way the next week, kind of thing. And you don't want that on your shoulders. You really don't. I'm telling you firsthand, you do not want that on your back. Because I've seen that happen. I've left storylines where I've had arcs going on, and it should have been instead of a one shot, it should have been a full story arc leading into the next one. Way back when I started in comics, and I'll tell you what, it is the worst scenario possible. It truly is the worst possible thing you can do. I see so many people just lose it And it's crazy to see happen. Don't do that to yourself, because you're going to end up choking out, and you'll be sitting there going, oh my God, why didn't I finish this book? I'm going to have him fight chickens, or I'm going to rename him Banshee and color him green and yellow and say it's a Marvel book and have him fight gnomes in front of a castle on a hill. Did I say that? Whoops. Sorry. But yeah, that's literally the truth of the matter, folks. Seriously. It's just one of those things where they lost track of storylines. They lost track of story arcs. You know, we see Marvel do that all the time. We see Disney do that all the time. You know, with the Marvel books, we see Warner Brothers do that all the time with the DC books. And they say they're hands off. They're not. I mean, let's just be honest here. They're not. They're not. And I'm going to come back in with a dark brown on that one, because this dude's hair is really dark. I'm just putting in this one as an undercoat, which is exactly what I did on the other pages. So we have to get that going on. And I'm not big on coloring over big blacks, but these little ones don't really matter because it blends down really smooth. But anyway, if you're producing a webcomic, I say go for it. If you want to get your stuff out there and show people you can be committed, do a webcomic for 6 months. Just 6 months. And, you know, 6 issues. Boom, 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 boom. It doesn't matter if they're 5 issues and it's just the length of one comic book. Make a story, make your characters, and kick it out. 5 months, 6 months. Boom, 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 boom. Do 5 or 6 pages a pop. You'll have a full comic book when you're ready to come to the end of 24 to 32 pages. Go for it. Kick it out, and you'll change your world. I'm going to pick this up to do this eyebrow here as well. But anyway, that's what I recommend, okay? Because I got asked about my timeline yesterday on these things. And if you're going to do the comic timeline where you produce a webcomic and make it valid for you and make it something that exists that you can use to get into some of the other companies, make sure that you're going off and doing it properly. I'm going to grab a dark brown here. Bear with me. But I think this is the one. Yep, it is. Cool deal. So make your comic book last, because if you don't, it's got to be something solid, you know, and you're going to ruin yourself if you don't, because you're going to get burnt out and you're not going to be happy with it. So make it a comic book that you can be proud of and that you can continue on after the whole shebang of, you know, whatever comes between arcs is done. And as an independent creator, you can always come back and refire up that engine. You know, so many people are like, well, if I start a comic book, I have to let it ride. Well, you don't have to let it ride. You can't let it sit forever, because it falls into default after so many years. But, you know, it's one of those things where you have to go off and make the comic books, and you're only one person, so you have to tell each story. And if you have to tell each story, that's perfectly fine. As long as you know, as long as you know you're going to, see, I'm a human. I do it all the time. Do accidents all the time. But that's part of it. I didn't press my page down. Note to self, press the page down before you erase something massive like that. But anyway, moving on. Moving on. Real comics here, folks. I'm not screwing around. But, yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to put out a comic book and get yourself out there, because this day and age, most of the corporate companies don't want to pay you to build your brand off of their licensed characters, okay? What they want you to do is they want you to bring a fan and following to their company as a famous artist or well-followed artist already. So you have to conceptualize what you're doing and build your own franchise and your own comic books. If you want to work for Marvel, that's fine. Just don't give up your entire studio once you build up a comic book for 6 or 7 months. Don't do that. Because I see guys all the time, they walk away from comic books to get a spot with Image or a spot with Avatar Press, or, you know, Antarctic Press, or they go with what's that new one? Oh, there's a new one now that's running around here. I won't mention it. I'll just leave it alone. But there's a couple of small press companies that are going around and picking up people and saying, well, you know, you stopped to work on this book for 6 months and you work with us. Well, guess what? You just killed your fan following for the book that you had. That makes sense. Why do that? You know, if you're going to do that and you're going to make all that effort to make a comic book, be sure that you come back to it and make it something quality that you can turn into a book and process later on for yourself. Because what's going to end up happening is you're going to end up choking it out to where you don't have anything in place for that. So with that said, we've shot this around probably a half an hour or so, about 35 minutes now. So I'm going to stop it right here, and we're going to call this a night. And I'll let you guys see this when the new book comes out this week. So I appreciate it. But I just wanted to come on and kind of hang out tonight and do this page, as always, do a piece of art for you guys and talk a little more shop about it, because this is a big thing for me that I see so many young artists getting a hold of. And I mean, some of the older guys too, you know, some guys around my age, 35, 40 years old, going out there and just giving it up and saying, oh, well, it's hot to build a comic. I'm going to build this comic. They build this beautiful comic and put in all this effort into it. And then the first time Marvel or DC pays attention to them, they drop it like a hot rock and just leave you hanging. And they totally throw this piece away. I don't understand that. I can't see professionally putting that much effort into my own property just to toss it away. And if they tell you they don't do it, they're lying, because they do it all the time. So if you're going to make a webcomic and you want to get into comics and make yourself famous or at least well-known to build up your business, build up your comic about 6 months out as a full comic book. Make up 24, 28, 32 pages, even 36 pages, bust them down into 4, 5, 6 page chapters, and make it an ongoing property so that you can get it out there and get it going. This is going to be running for a while. I already know how this is going to go, but this is like a webcomic version of a TV show. That's what we're doing here, or a movie broken down into a season. So that's the reason The Walking Dead is doing so well, is because they're handling that show like you would the comic book. They're taking the arcs of the comic and breaking it down into chapters and episodes, and then writing it into their version of what you would see in the comic for the completed story. So at the end of the season, you have basically one big movie going on. Think about it from that perspective, and think about it like a graphic novel status, not just a comic book, issue to issue and week to week. Think about that. So until next time, as always, we have this big rock for a limited amount of time, so don't waste your time here as we go along. And remember to keep the party rocking for the next generation by doing something cool and taking care of the planet. Talk to you later.